Okay, welcome back to the Peace and Progress podcast, episode 6. How we feeling tonight? Good.
Tired.
That's the theme of your
Yeah.
life.
Surprise.
The theme of your life, tired. All right, so I have a topic or conversation for today per my request, but also per the people's request. And then I kind of want to let you lead it. So we'll go kind of based off of what you think. And we can go into, I'll go as deep as I feel comfortable going, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there will probably be certain things that I won't touch on specifically, but I'll try and be as open and like transparent as possible. But I think the theme for tonight with me is talking about um me dealing with, living with, or like struggling through anxiety, not just in personal life, but like business and just life stuff in general. I think a lot of people already know kind of at this point. I think I've been very vocal about it, at least on the fitness page, um, about living with anxiety and dealing with it. So, yeah, that's the theme of tonight. But I don't know if you have any like way you want to lead it off or like where, or if I should just jump into it and just kind of go like where I think it started, or if anything you have to comment on.
Yeah, I guess you can talk about where you think it started.
So I'll say this, and we can get a little bit deeper as we go on. But I think that the anxiety, well, also just to backtrack and kind of like set this up, on the last podcast with Brittany, both her and I had talked about how we're in therapy now.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to a therapist, and that's one of the things that we're working on is my anxiety and like how I can manage and cope with it, and like things that I can do to help lessen um the anxiety when it hits, because it definitely, there are days where it gets a lot. It gets to be a lot. And then there's days where it's, to me, it's more manageable, whether that's doing the things that I've learned through therapy or just, over the years of having it, things that I've learned to kind of help cope with it. But I will say within the last, I would probably, we'll say 1.5 years, I feel like it's significantly gotten not worse, but it's gotten more obvious to me that I struggle with it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know at what point, like I can't really pinpoint or like put my finger on like a specific date or time or like incident that happened where I'm just like, yep, that's where it started. So I feel like as long as I've known, I feel like I kind of, not like far back into my childhood, but probably into my adult years, I would say probably around like 20, I don't know.
Maybe, do you ever remember it before you moved to Arizona?
I think that was more, and this is the other thing too. Like, let me just preface all of this by saying that like I haven't been, um, what's the word? Not
Formally
diagnosed,
diagnosed. Yeah, diagnosed.
diagnosed with anxiety or anything like that. I feel like I have some OCD. I feel like I have some ADD, which is also, I think, hereditary, right? My dad and my brother both have ADHD.
Yeah, and even the OCD slash anxiety, depending on how it manifests, could be considered hereditary as well. It's a learned behavior.
The anxiety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're watching, people in your life who have anxiety and you kind of pick up on that stuff and
Yeah. So going to Arizona, I don't think I ever noticed it that I had anxiety. I feel like I was more, I hate throwing this term around so loosely because I know that it carries a lot of weight, but I felt more, I'll just use quotes. I felt more depressed in
right.
Arizona.
And I think that was more of a situational thing, obviously, because you were by yourself and that was the first time that you were living on your own. And not only that, like obviously you moved to a completely different state, so that in and of itself is very isolating.
Hmm.
So I think that that was more or less situational, because obviously then when you came home, did you feel the same?
No, because I
Yeah.
felt like I was, it's almost like, I guess, not to like make light of what depression actually is, but I think part of it was like FOMO, you know, like I had
Well,
like
you were isolated.
I felt like I was missing out on a lot of things. Like I
Yeah.
missed my family, I missed my friends, I missed when I'd see them on Facebook, which was the popular thing at the time. When I see them like going out with
Right.
each other and like doing things that were fun, and I'm just sitting in my apartment by myself. So it
Right.
was just kind of this like
It's almost this feeling that like nobody cares about you too.
kind of, I don't know, I think that's more of like actual depression.
Oh, that's just me.
I don't know. It didn't feel like nobody cares, I guess, but it was very
Well, in that sense, what I mean is like obviously people are going out and living their lives, and it's just like I'm here and nobody's reaching out. I mean, I'm sure people were reaching out, but
no, nobody did.
nobody came to visit. I remember you told me that.
One person.
Right. So then those thoughts, I mean, you can't help but think things and have that FOMO because it's like nobody's coming here. I'm not being involved kind of aspect.
Yeah, I think it was more of like just a FOMO aspect. It's like I don't feel like I never felt like nobody cared
Mm.
specifically.
Oh,
I was
that's
just
good.
like, yeah, I just felt like seeing people doing things, or like if I was talking to people through text or on the phone and they're like, oh, we're going to go do this and this. And it's just like, okay, that sounds fun. I guess I'm just going to hang out in my apartment and go to bed,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think um, the Arizona thing was more, like you said, it was situational depression, just being in a new state and
Mm-hmm.
like a new place where I don't really know anybody, which we've already kind of touched on. But I will say, going back to the anxiety thing and ADHD thing, that's more inherited, the ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
But I do notice, which you can attest to or not, I don't know if you want to agree to this, but I do notice that on top of those two, so the anxiety, the OCD, and the ADD thing, I also feel like oftentimes I'm very quick to, quick to get, I don't know how to put it. I'm quick to get impatient with certain things,
Well,
and
that's, I mean, could be considered part of your anxiety.
could be. I just know,
A lot of anxiety stems around like having control.
yeah, that's a big thing for me is
Well,
feeling
right.
feeling the need to have control over things, especially that I know I don't have control of. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's hard for me.
Right.
And that obviously triggers the anxiety, which is something that I'm
So in
working on in
terms of
therapy.
of being impatient is like you want something to occur in a specific time or in a specific timely manner, and when it doesn't, or if it's taking too long, that's where you start to get impatient, but it's more or less like just a stem of your anxiety.
Yes, but I also mean a patience from the perspective of like going 0 to 100. Like
That would
quick to get a
be
temper.
impulsivity.
Okay. So what I was saying is going back to like it being a learned behavior
Mm-hmm.
is like I feel like the anxiety aspect and like that impatience was a lot of my mom. And I think that the short fuse
Mm-hmm.
side of me
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of my dad
Mm-hmm.
and being around that. Like he was always he as far as I remember, he never really was anxious. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you would think he is now.
He's told us that he feels like he has anxiety.
Yeah, but I feel like his is either he's able to suppress it more than I am, or it's a lot more manageable for him because I don't feel like it comes out. And I think that he's calmed down a lot more now in
Mm-hmm.
these years that he's in than when I was a kid.
Well, right.
And it was never with me. Like it was never with me. So I'll make that clear. It was always just like I guess things out of your control, but he was
Right.
always very quick from 0 to 100 when things like that would happen that he didn't have control over. Like he would lose his patience very quick. And I'm oftentimes like that, especially with the kids, which I hate, but like just stuff in general that doesn't go according to plan is partial the anxiety, but partial that too. And I think that both of those, well, not, I think, I know both of those behaviors have come from the way that I grew up. And I want to make it clear that like I don't have any um I don't know what the word is, like not grudge, but like I don't have any resentment for how I was brought up. Like I don't think
No, because even your mom, I mean, we would not necessarily ask her, but more or less tell her that she had anxiety, and it was like, no, I don't. And it's like, are you crazy? You definitely have anxiety.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that I'm learning and understanding that more now at this point. Um so I guess this would be a good time to put this in the podcast because there's people that may follow the podcast that don't actually follow me and know me. But I feel like this has to be said in here for context. Um, Obviously, my mom passed away last year.
Hmm.
So, uh, a year and a half ago, roughly. So that'll give more context to the time frame of like the anxiety hitting. But I think that since that has happened, I feel like I'm more conscious of like that anxiety. It's almost like prior to that, like what you're saying is when you're saying you have anxiety and she's saying, no, I don't. I kind of felt like that for myself prior to this whole
Right.
situation. And now, after going through all of this, I definitely see more things. And that's a lot of what we talk about in therapy, me and my therapist, is like,
Yeah, I think that obviously over the last year, everything just kind of put everything into perspective, that things that you were worrying about or anxious about or things like that, it really puts it in perspective. Like, it really doesn't matter at the end
hmm,
of the day.
it doesn't. And that's something, one, that I already know, but two, that I'm really trying to learn
Hmm.
and tell myself because,
We almost have to think like, what's the worst that could happen in those situations? And it's not even like necessarily I don't even know how to explain it, but regardless of whatever situation you're in, I feel like challenging your anxiety in that way is actually healthy,
mm,
because then it puts, obviously, like, the worst case. For me, a lot of times my anxiety on a daily basis is around getting the boys out of the door to school.
mm,
And I like to get to their school, around a certain time so they both have time to play. So I get anxious if we're not, out the door by a certain time. But then you have to sit and think, like, what's the worst if we're late? If we're late and, they get there right before the bell rings, well, that's fine. And honestly, it's more or less their fault because they're doing whatever, dilly-dallying or whatever.
mm,
But then even further is they're late and we have to go to the office because they're tardy or whatever. That's fine too.
yeah.
So just like challenging the anxiety, like what's the worst that could happen, and then being okay with that worst case scenario.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And I think my therapist too has even challenged me um, to kind of just sit in it.
Hmm.
And which to me at first sounded very counterproductive. It's like, so you just want me to be anxious? And but I think what she was trying to get me to understand is like, when it hits, oftentimes like me leaning into it
Hmm.
and like continuing to be anxious is me allowing that to have that power over me.
Hmm.
And when she's telling me to just sit in it and label it as anxiety so
Hmm.
that I know and I'm aware this is what anxiety is, this is what it feels like. But I'm going to sit in this and I'm going to use all of the tools that she's helped me kind of learn
Right.
to kind of go through that and come out on the other side to know like, okay, it really doesn't have as much power over me as I initially thought, or like that I would usually give it, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of times, obviously, like, you wear a lot of hats. So it's more or less like when the anxiety hits, you're using that as like, okay, I'm starting to feel anxious. So in this moment, what can I do to keep being proactive?
mm,
Um, and more or less like continue to get done what I need to get done and not let it overpower, like you're saying, and overwhelm you, because a lot of times when you don't do that, you kind of like spiral. And that's where I start to see it like come out in different ways. And it's like, okay, you need to calm down.
Yeah, no, I know.
um,
I agree.
so like you're saying is like, is when you're feeling it come on, is taking those moments and like, okay, whether it's you have so many things to get done, right? And then saying like, okay, I'm going to write a list for what needs to get done first. So then you can visually see everything you need to do. And then hopefully it helps your anxiety in that way to like see all the things you're accomplishing. Um, and then on the reverse is if you don't do that, it's just not good for yourself, but also like those around you either.
Right. Yeah, and I don't ever like to going back to touch base on like doing a bunch of different things, but first is like I don't like to I don't like to push my anxiety on other people. And I try my best to not let it come out in certain situations. Like obviously with the family it's one thing because you obviously understand. The kids obviously don't, but you understand that I have anxiety. And so to you, like you kind of know how to handle it because you've been with me for so long. But when it comes to like work situations, I try my best to suppress it during like a session, for example,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't ever want to force my anxiety on other people and that may not know obviously how to deal with it. One or two, they may not know that that's anxiety. It might just come off as sometimes rude,
Right.
or like I'm just short with them, you know what I mean? And
Right. Meanwhile, you're thinking of 10
yeah,
other things.
well, right, because it's like you said is I often do so many things and I've had conversations with clients and friends in general is just like that don't understand why. And hopefully this podcast or this topic gives a little bit more insight to it. But I think a lot of it is anxiety based. It's anxiety driven. Is like, why do you do so many things? Why do you, you know, just why don't you just stick to being a personal trainer? Why do you have to do a podcast? Why do you
I
have
think
to
part of that is your ADD, but
ADD, but also too, which I've told you this, and I've told a handful of clients, and I've told my therapist. But for people that don't know, my biggest fear in general
mm-hmm.
is just running out of time. And there's so many levels to that. Like there's so many layers to that. It's not just physically running out of time, like life wise here, which is one aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
But like running out of time, obviously, yes, on this earth, like at some point, I'm no longer going to be here. That's inevitable. But also running out of time to accomplish all of the things that I want to accomplish. And I'll get into this a little bit deeper and we don't have to touch on it too much, but running out of time to spend with my kids, running out of time to go on vacations with them or places
Mm-hmm.
that I want to visit and travel. And so I have this, I think, over, I don't know if it's like an over anxious thing or it's just like the ADD, but like to do all of these things, like it constantly sits in my brain. And like, that's how my mind works is just like, I have to do all of these things in order to get to this point. Because if I don't start this podcast, this is something that I'm passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't do this, I'm going to run out of time to do it.
Right.
Podcasts either aren't going to be relevant or something, God forbid, could happen to me, or it could just be another dream that I had that sat on the sidelines that I never um, executed.
Right.
So it's just, there's a lot of things, and it's just, and I think the biggest thing, obviously, going back to, not to keep touching on it, but going back to everything that's happened in the last year and a half, and obviously being around like family members in my life that are no longer here is like that has instilled that fear even deeper in me to be like, I don't know how long I have to do all of these things. So I want to, not to sound cheesy, but like I want to squeeze every ounce out of the life that I do have
Mm-hmm.
while I still have the ability to do it. And that's kind of how the anxiety kicks into overdrive in my head is just like, I need to do all of these things. It's not that I have to or that I want to. It's like, I need to do all of these things because I'm just afraid of running out of time to do all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I've told you, even with my dad and like going on vacations now, is like, I would like to go on vacations with him at some point, but obviously he's getting older too. And the longer that I wait, the less likely of a chance that that's going to happen, and the less time that I'm going to have to do that as well.
Right.
And so that obviously stirs up my anxiety. It's just like I get anxious about the fact that like I'm not going to have much time to do that
Mm-hmm.
either, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I don't know. That was I think that was a good in-depth look at like how my brain processes things, because I just went through like a whole bunch of topics in 7 seconds. But yeah, it's I don't know. It can be exhausting at times, and I hate I feel bad for the people that have to deal with anxiety or have to deal with depression or anything along the lines that's similar to that. It's not fun.
Right.
And I've always said it's almost like an invisible illness because you can't see it. It's
Right.
just something that you're internally dealing with. And what makes it even worse is when people like if you're actually battling depression or anxiety or OCD or ADD, and you're around people or talking to other people that have never had to deal with that, they don't understand. And it's almost like it's frustrating because they don't, it's not like you're mad at them for not understanding, but it's frustrating because you can't explain it to somebody that's never gone through it, you know?
Right. And it's almost like this feeling of like you're saying, like almost an invisible illness. Like, like you can feel it, like you know what it feels like, but you also can't stop it.
Hmm.
And that's the hardest part. And then it's like, in terms of like the depression, like I had depression for probably a couple years right before we started dating.
Hmm.
And I would just cry all the time. And it's like, my best friend would ask, like, why are you so upset? And it's like, I don't know.
Right.
I can't.
Which I think earlier on too, I was kind of in that same boat. Like I didn't really understand, but now it's like, I think that the anxiety hits a little bit harder now. It's like, I get it. You know what I mean? Even though
Mm-hmm.
depression and anxiety are two separate things, like they're not exactly the same, but it's like having, like you said, an invisible illness
Mm-hmm.
is like, I understand that side, like your side more. It's just like when people are asking you, oh, why are you anxious? And you can't explain it. It's like, I
Right.
don't
If I
know.
knew, I would stop it.
Right. And
Yeah.
and I think that that's one of the hardest things is like I've had so many conversations with my therapist. I've had conversations with you. I get very angry with myself. I'm very hard on myself, and I think that people that know me, like truly know me, understand that and they know that I am. And there's been not really recently, but I would say within the last probably we'll just say 3 to 6 months, somewhere in that time frame, there's been days where multiple days in a row that I have literally just waken up
Mm-hmm.
with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing has happened. I open my eyes and immediately it hits, and it's sometimes it's multiple days in a row,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets exhausting for sure, mentally and physically. But for me it gets very frustrating because it's like I
Just
know
want a normal day.
I don't want to live like this
Right.
anymore, and I don't know, it's almost like you're stuck on a hamster wheel
Yeah.
and I don't know how to get off. And
And
to the
every day
average
you wake
person,
up, it's almost just like, is today going to be the day it's over? And then,
right.
yeah.
But to the average person, they might think, well, why don't you just get off?
Right.
And it's like, but it's not that simple. I wish it was.
Or they'll say something stupid like, oh, you should go for a run or you should go for a walk. And it's like,
Well, sometimes you do and it helps, and sometimes you do and it doesn't
sometimes,
help.
yeah,
So yeah, it's
just go touch some grass.
right. And again, like I don't mean that to say that like
Those things don't work.
no, that what they're saying is stupid,
Right.
but it's
It's
just
not
like
that
when you don't,
easy.
yeah, when you don't understand, you don't get it. And like,
Right.
yeah, I don't, not to like belittle anybody and be like, you don't get what I'm going through, but it's like, yeah, if you've never been through it,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing as anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. This is the first thing that came to mind, but like when we've talked about this, like when you know somebody that's lost somebody that they love,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost like you feel bad for them, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I'm so sorry. That's,
Right.
you know, but you don't truly understand. Like you can, and I've been guilty of this too. Like I've told people before, like, I don't know if I've said it in these exact words, but like I totally understand how you feel. And it's like you don't though
No, and you
until
don't realize that
you go
until
through something like
yeah.
that. Yeah, and then have feel bad because it almost seemed, even though I know on my end it wasn't fake,
Mhm.
like that the genuineness and the love about reaching out like was never fake, but I almost in a way feel like it kind of was, and it made me feel a certain ways. It's like I felt bad for saying like
Well, I think you say it just to
to sympathize
yeah,
for sure because you truly are sorry
right.
and you feel that way.
But you
You wouldn't
can't
say that if you
imagine
didn't.
how somebody feels until you actually go through yourself.
And I think even then, like everybody experiences it different, right? Like grief doesn't have a timeline. And that's one thing that
Right.
I've learned with my therapist is like, well, that's also one thing I've learned was just going through life is like it doesn't, there's no end date on it. And there's no way to predict when a day is gonna,
No, it's like the stupidest stuff that
yeah, it could be the most simple things, you know?
right, right.
So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that,
I
but
know now we're going down like a grief rabbit hole, but
yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. There was something I was trying to come back full circle and touch on something, but
just the anxiety piece is like you don't know until you've been through it. So grief
yes,
is
yes,
similar in that
yes.
way
Thank you.
when you lose somebody that's really close. And if you haven't, and you can obviously I can't imagine. I mean, that's what people say. I can't imagine what you're going through. And it's like, no, you really can't.
Right, but again, you don't mean that in a rude way.
No.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, that's true. You can't
Yeah.
until you experience that. And I also, I mean, again, I know it's inevitable and it's so silly to say that like I pray that nobody has to experience that, but I truly do. Like that's one of those things that like I would never wish on like my worst enemy. Like I would never wish anybody to have to experience that.
No. And I mean, I can sit here and say, like, you know, or even for somebody to go through it as young as us, but I don't think it gets easier because, in the same way that, it would suck to lose your parents when you're a kid because, like, to help you grow up or whatever, it's not equally, but it's just different to lose a parent when you're a young, I think we're still rather young adults
Hmm.
as we're trying to raise our own kids. Like, I would talk to your mom multiple times a day, every day.
Hmm.
She was like my go-to.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if you're lucky enough to have your parents um when you're in your 50s, like even my dad's, I still have my grandparents around.
Right.
I don't think it ever gets easier, is what I'm saying, is like it's always going to be different. You're always going to be in a different stage of life where it's going to be different because I think by the time, my grandparents pass, like imagine living so much of your life with your parents and then they're just gone. I mean, obviously right now it feels that way for us too because it's still so fresh,
Hmm.
but I think it's different for us right now too because like I said, is like we're raising our kids and she was helping us raise them. So like we're going through all of that. So no matter when you lose somebody that's close to you, it's going to be different, but just like you said, it's hard in general
Hmm.
because there's so much of your life and then there's like all these little things that like you didn't even think in like while they were here, like their memories, but then little things happen and it's like, ugh,
Yeah.
that person's not there to like even talk to about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's often times too where it's just like you forget that you're not able to just call that person or text that person and just check in. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of times too, at least for me, where the reality of everything will just hit again,
Mhm.
even though I know obviously the reality of the situation. But when it hits, it's just like I don't know. It
I
just
think
feels.
it's hard for us especially too is because like she was always so healthy and it was very sudden.
Mhm.
So like you're saying is like you think back on like all of these memories that we had with her and stuff and it's like how are we here right now?
Mhm.
Like it still doesn't make sense to me like
Like, how did we get here? You mean?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think going back to like the difficulty of everything is because she was so active in not only our life, but like the boy's life.
Mhm.
Not, I mean, physically, yes, but like active in the sense that like was the go to for everything, you know? And
Mhm.
it's like when you don't have that anymore, it really puts a lot of things into perspective, at least for me. It's just, and I think we talked about this, but I was telling my therapist last week when we had Jackson's birthday, that was the first birthday party that we had to actually plan because we've always had
Well,
every party at her place.
we play in Brixton's here right after she passed.
Right. But I think that we were still kind of just we were trying to live in the happy and positive memories at that point. It wasn't like,
Yeah, I think we were both in agreement that
I think
he
we,
deserved to have a party.
yes, but I think we were using the planning to kind of like distract us mentally because it was so soon. It was literally the month after.
Mhm.
So at least for me, I can speak for me. I think that the party planning was a distraction for me mentally to not focus on the reality of the situation. I'm like waking up every day and like that she's not here anymore. So
That, and I almost feel like uh, I don't even know why this is like making me emotional thinking about it, but um having all of our family and friends, like a reason for them to like come be around us again.
mhm.
Um like you're saying, not really to distract us, but to have a reason for them to be close again, because for the last couple months prior to that, they were around and we were around everybody, obviously on not the best of terms, but
Mhm.
then to have an excuse to like have everybody come back together and surround us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
um
What I always say is like family wise, at least for her side, is like she was always the glue of
mhm,
that. And
mhm.
like everything revolved around her in the sense that like she was the one that would always plan the meetups. She was the one that would always remind people. She was
Oh yeah, she
the
remembered
house that
everyone's
we would always go
birthdays and
to
mhm,
for, Memorial Day or Labor Day or Christmas time. They'd come down and spend the weekend or whatever at her
mhm,
house. And it's
mhm.
just like it's all of that also went away,
Yeah.
like in, I don't know. I don't mean that we can't be the responsible people to do that now, but it just,
No, but it's hard when that's like your routine, not even like a
yeah,
tradition. It's more or less like a routine.
yeah,
And then that's just like disrupted.
hmm, yeah, yeah. I feel like everything has been since then, truthfully, in the last year and a half. But
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of changed how we're living our lives, basically.
100% it's changed how I live my life. And I hate, obviously, that. Now I always say this. I feel like a lot of times it takes something super like drastic like that to make people really like put a lot of things into perspective.
Hmm.
So it's almost like that negative thing became a blessing
Yeah.
because it really puts things into perspective for me, and like I live my life completely different
Hmm.
than I was for sure 2 years ago, but hopefully how I had planned to live my life too, you know what I mean? Like who knows how long I would have continued going down the same path that I was going prior to all that and
Hmm.
just kind of just going through life. And again, I think that that's another reason why that puts that fear perspective in me or instills that fear in me is because like I don't want to that shifted my mentality to be like I don't want to waste any time.
No, because you don't know what could happen, and if you have the time to do it now, then do it now. And
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about before how we're going to take the boys to New York, and we've had people say like they're not going to remember that, and it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who knows what could happen, next month or
Right.
next year or whatever. And it's like we have the ability to do it now, so we're going to do it now.
Yeah, well also obviously we had talked about in the podcast, the episode that we talked about going to New York is like that was her
Yeah.
wish. Like that's what
Right.
she wanted to do. And when she was in the hospital, that's what she had told us, that she
That was
said,
her goal.
yeah,
Yeah.
she said, when I get out, um, I want to take the boys to New York. And I don't know. I don't know if it was you or me or both of us, but we had just said, no matter what, we'll obviously take them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we're taking them. So yeah, I mean, when people say like, they're not going to remember it, like if you knew the reason behind why we're taking them, then you would understand that that doesn't matter
Not only
if
that,
they
but
remember
like,
it or not.
I mean, we'll remember it. So,
Yeah. And yeah, it just, yeah, I don't know. It sucks because, not to keep going back to like the fear thing, but it's one of the reasons why I want to do all of these things is because that was a trip that we were all supposed to go on.
right.
And now that's not going to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's, to me, it's like I'll never get that opportunity to do that again.
Right.
And so that's why I have that like fear mentality. It's just like I want to do it now while I have the ability, because
Exactly.
I don't know if,
If you
again,
put it
like,
off, yeah, if you put it off 5, 10 years, who knows what's going to happen at that point? Like, why would you put it off?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of things too, like even going to get the tattoo with my dad. Like,
Right. And I think that, if we're talking about, you things that you've learned from both of your parents, things that we want to pass on to our kids, this is one of them. If you have the ability to do something,
mhm.
do it.
That's what I try and tell people too. And like, obviously, not that this matters, and to shift the conversation, we'll come back, but um, the Instagram that I use with our family
Mm-hmm.
was like, that's what I want to, that's the type of stuff that I want to promote. Like, that's truly how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's obvious if anybody follows that page, but you can see like, that's what I want people to get out of this, is like, if I could tell people one thing in their life, it's that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people that have lost loved ones will understand that. And those that haven't,
Mm-hmm.
that are fortunate enough to still have them here, I just hope that they understand that concept before it's too late. And that's
Right.
why I'm very vocal about that. Is just like, and I say this all the time, even on the Instagram page, but, you know, the money is obviously a factor when it comes to like affording things. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you need money to afford life, to afford travel, to afford all of these things. But when you really think about the concept of money versus time, is like, time doesn't come back, money will, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And
Mm-hmm.
even if it doesn't, the money,
Mm-hmm.
when you go, you can't take it with you.
Right.
You can only take the experiences and the memories that you have
Right.
and that you made while you were here. So
And the impact that you've had on other people.
100%. And so it's like, why wouldn't you? When
Mm-hmm.
people are like, why would you take the boys? They're too young. They're not going to remember it. It's like, again, when you think about it from that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't you?
Right. Because even though, as a whole, they might not remember every single little thing that we do in New York that maybe you and I will remember, but I can guarantee that there will be core memories made for them that will impact the rest of their life.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a big thing with me too, is like thinking back now about my childhood. It's like, I always remembered those memories. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
always about the trip.
No.
It's about the memories made on the trip, or the
Mm-hmm.
memories made with the people that you're
Right.
with, you
Right.
know? And I want that for my kids, because at some point that's all they're going to have of me,
Right.
is the memories.
Right.
And I want them to be the best memories that they could possibly have.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to look back and always have something, a memory that's positive to think
Mm-hmm.
of, like, oh, remember when we did this or when we did that? And we often do that, a lot with my mom. Is like the video of her like dancing in the kitchen being ridiculous that she would never want posted.
Right.
And it's like, those are the memories, like just little things like that, like being in the presence and the company of people that you actually love and
Mm-hmm.
you love being around.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's to me, that's what it's about in life. Like, it's not all the other stuff is great. Like, yeah, it's great to have money and it's great to be able to afford to do nice things and go nice places. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about the memories that you're making
Mhm.
and the impact that you're making and leaving behind.
Mhm.
So
So that's our podcast on anxiety.
I got emotional too.
uh,
Yeah, I figured it was going to be an emotional one, but I think it was time to unpack that. I feel like I've kind of just been, I knew it was inevitable.
right. I mean, it's obvious that like we are not very public. That's just not how she was, so it just doesn't feel right to talk about
And
in
it's just
depth.
not how I am anymore either. Like, again, I feel like I've changed so much in the last 2 years. It's like
Mhm.
I've become a lot more consciously aware of like protecting my peace. Shout
Right.
out to the Peace and Progress podcast. And that's where the name came from, truthfully, is like protecting my peace, but also like being progressive in a sense of like just in general in life, like positively progressive and like focusing on my mental health and focusing on bettering all aspects of my life as a father, as a husband, as a trainer, as a friend, as, you know,
Mhm.
just in general, like progressing through the grief,
Yeah.
being progressive,
Yeah.
and like doing things that are positive, because
Yeah.
life is gonna life always, there's always gonna be days that make you anxious. There's always gonna be days that the grief hits. There's always gonna be days where you're frustrated or days where you're angry or days that you feel like everything is falling apart.
Mhm.
But I think the key is to be able to focus on the good. And I know that's just easier said than done, but I think that if you can do that, ultimately you all of those things can't hold power over you,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
So I don't know. Do you want to end it there?
Yeah. That was probably a good place to end it. I'm sure
Mm,
we'll have more to talk about in the
yeah.
next one.
Yeah. I like
This
this. I think that
this
this is
might
good
have
to unpack.
spurred up some more questions.
Yeah. Yeah. You could leave some questions or comments either on the video or as I post little snippets of it on Instagram. I'll post stuff on the stories. But yeah, leave comments and give more like if there's any insight to other stuff that we can unpack
Mhm.
and get a little bit deeper into. Like obviously again, I'm only going to be as open as I feel comfortable with things. Um Other stuff might have to be more like person to person DMs if people have questions, but yeah, like I said, I'll try and be as open and transparent and honest as possible. I think that that's what this was supposed to be about anyway, is like having
Yeah.
real conversations, not just with me and you, but with people in general and just being as vulnerable as possible or as vulnerable as you want to be.
Mhm.
This is also the podcast side of me, not the trainer side. So don't judge me for drinking a Diet Coke. It's almost 9 p.m. Get off me. Anyway, all right. Well, thanks for coming to the podcast. Thanks for doing it with me.
Mhm.
I'm sure we'll have more to unpack at some point. This is a good topic, but I know that you're tired.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, it's one that was inevitable and
I think it's still going to be inevitable. And as we go to New York, there will be more stuff to talk about. So,
yeah.
about our trip and like all the stuff that we did. But until next time,
Peace.
no, you got to do your bye.
Bye.
Peace.